Hey everybody, welcome to Bowling Lefty's channel. Just got another cool kind of video. In this video, as you can see, we got a bunch of radical balls set up here. So I thought it'd be something different. I am going to do in this video a review of the snapshot, but I thought I'd do a little bit of history behind the radical bowling line because to me, it's fascinating. The history behind Phil Cardinale and Mo Pinel. So this will be a quicker video, but just want to kind of give you some of that historical background if you enjoy throwing radical bowling balls. I'm a big history guy, so I love talking about and learning about the history behind everything. So in this case, the history behind Phil Cardinale and radical bowling is really cool. So I wanted to get into this. Phil Cardinale has done several interviews where he talks about how he's had his career and how he started. Check out his podcast. I believe it's one of the first 2 or 3 episodes of the podcast that he does with Brunsnick on the Radical channel. I believe they're up to like 96, 97 podcasts. And if you go back all the way, they do one normally weekly, so it's a couple years old. But if you take a look at it, it's pretty awesome to hear him talk about his career in the bowling industry. And more than anything, what I want to hit on is how Phil Cardinale and Mo Pinel are kind of like innovators in the bowling industry and the equipment that we have now. So let's talk a little bit about Phil Cardinale. So Phil Cardinale started doing bowling equipment. I think he said he's been doing it for over 30 years easily. I think it's getting closer to 35 or 36, 37, somewhere around there. So Phil Cardinale initially gets his start with Star Trek, a company by the name of Star Trek back in the late 80s, early 90s. He's making bowling balls, and at the time, he ends up changing the name to Track. So he starts creating bowling balls for the Track bowling line. Track ends up getting bought out by Columbia. Phil stays on and continues to build bowling balls for them. Comes up with ceramic core, which ended up being one of those bowling balls inventions or innovations, as they call it, that really changed the bowling ball line into more closer to what we have now rather than the 80s and the 70s and 60s. So at the time, Phil Cardinale talks about an interesting thing is at the time, the differential, the RG differential that they could come up with was the most it was at the time in the early 90s was 0.020. Now, as you've heard me mention in several other videos and most bowling balls today, a lot of them are in the 50s, and the max that you can get now is 0.060. So with ceramic core, Phil was able to really learn how to increase that RG, which obviously you increase that and gives the bowling ball more motion. So there was one time when he was with Track, and you'll remember staffers like Tim Chris, I believe his name Johnny Mazza, some of the pros that we loved in the 90s. Dave DeAntremont, I believe, was on their staff for a while, and several other big name pros have been with Track for a long time. But I remember watching as a kid Tim Chris, the Turtle, winning several tournaments. Dave DeAntremont winning several tournaments, both completely different styles, but all using Track equipment and really getting that ball to look good. And then you got John Mazza, that beautiful style that John Mazza had. And so they, at one point, had won 13 out of 14 PBA events. And in the one that they didn't win, they finished in 6th place. So at one point on the PBA tour, the Track brand, which when it was its most successful, was being run by Phil Cardinale. Track Heat is one of his most successful bowling balls he comments on. So Phil Cardinale, a huge success. He ends up leaving. Columbia 300 ends up being bought out by Ebonite International. As you know, this is kind of the start. The late 90s was the start of where smaller bowling ball companies started being bought out by others. Ebonite International at one point they owned Columbia, Track, a bunch of other brands, kind of like how we have Brunswick today having the 7 different brands. That was kind of the biggest deal I remember in the late 90s that really changed the bowling game and the equipment that was made. So after Ebonite International buys out Columbia, they pretty much tell Phil, hey, I don't have anything else for you. So before he leaves Columbia in the early 90s, he paired up with a gentleman by the name of Mo Pinel in the early 90s. They created a bowling ball that had huge success. And from there, they're together for about a year, 2 years, until Mo goes over to AMF and they build one of the most famous balls of all time, the AMF Sumo. The AMF Sumo was unique because it sold worldwide over 100,000 bowling balls, which at the time was unheard of. The great thing for Mo was that he had royalties attached to every single one of those sales that they made. So not only was Mo getting paid for his salary, he also got royalties for each one of those sumo bowling balls that they built. So AMF at the time was probably the most one of the most successful bowling companies out there, and decided that Mo was making too much money, so they released him. Now, fast forward to 99, around the same time, both gentlemen go in separate directions and they start their own companies. Mo starts Morik, which, if you ever heard of Morik, the one person I knew who was on staff who bowled the PBA Tour at the time was Michael Haugen. I had the Morik Colossus, which was one of my favorite bowling balls at the time. Mind you, this is probably early 2000s. I believe I was in college at the time. I was in college. So I was probably 18 or 19 at the time. So it's the late 90s. It's one of their initial balls that they released for the Morik line. And it was a fantastic bowling ball. At the same time, switching over to Phil ends up creating his bowling company called Dinothane. Dinothane today was, if you know their history, it was around for a very short time, but they still have such a vital impact on the industry today because back in the early 2000s, Mo was also importing an ABS shoes, which was responsible for the Dynaroos. Now, Dynaroos, and you might figure out where I'm going with this, used kangaroo leather for their shoes. Unique. At the time in the industry, it was Linz and Dexter were the two main shoe companies that you would find, but then you had these Dynaroos that came out, which were fantastic. The kangaroo leather was a game changer for the shoe industry, which ended up, having a beautiful look, but small company going against Linz, going against Dexter, it was almost impossible for them. So Dynaroos are what we have today as the 3G bowling shoe, which is owned by Storm. Now, the 3Gs, if you remember the original black, I had the original black ones, some of the most softest shoes I've ever had, the best shoes. That's why I still, to this day, I use 3G bowling shoes, because they still use the all leather for their high-end shoes. I did see they just released one that was, they're releasing 3 with that new click shoelace system, which I got to tell you look pretty awesome. Being left-handed, though, I will tell you only one is going to be available in left-handed, as far as I know, which is going to be the white leather one. Phil ends up selling Dynathane to Ebonite International. Ebonite International buys them out. He ends up going to work at the factory, the Global 900 factory, creates Global 900. Global 900 at the time was producing the AMF bowling balls in the early 2000s. And he stays there until he creates his bowling company called Radical. Now, initially, fun fact if you didn't know, but Global 900 was the initial producer for the Radical bowling balls for a little less than a year. In the late 2010, about 2011 timeline, he ends up being bought out by Brunswick. He meets with Brunswick. Brunswick says his contract ends with Global. Phil ends up going to, is contacted by Brunswick, and he says, hey, I don't mind working out a deal. Obviously, he knew from Dynathane, when you're going against all these big companies, if you're trying to start your small bowling line, it's very difficult. You need the backing and everything else. So he works out a deal with Brunswick. Initially, he tries to get them to produce all of his equipment, but they decide that they want to license Radical instead of produce his bowling equipment. So they present him with a contract, and Phil decides, hey, you know what, this is a good deal. So the end of 2011, beginning of 2012, Phil goes into business with running Radical through Brunswick. And Brunswick comes back to Phil and says, hey, we'd also like to have Mo Pinel join you. Mo at the time was still with Morick Bowling Company, which ceased operations in 2011. So Mo Pinel was looking for a job. Mo ends up getting hired by Brunswick as kind of a contractor. And Brunswick decides that, hey, we have this new ball company, Radical. Let's put Mo and his experience and his expertise, his engineering and his mind, one of the greatest minds, if not the greatest mind in bowling ball creation of anybody in the industry. Mo and Phil get together into what we have today as Radical. Some of their first bowling balls that they create were the Reacts and the Yeti. Yeti is still one of the most well-known Radical bowling balls. Where they first found their great success, and I'm one of those people who would agree with it, is the original Guru, a black ball with an orange emblem that says Guru. Guru was their first line of balls where they reproduced multiple of them. As a matter of fact, I had the Guru Master. For me, it wasn't as good of a bowling ball, but the Guru stayed in my bag for years. It was an excellent ball. Used it for a long period of time, had a very unique motion to it. So further down the line, where I become more invested in buying Radical bowling balls with hits and misses, right? For several years, I do believe that Radical was kind of like a miss company, at least for my game. So I have the Guru, then I have the Guru Master. I buy the Guru Master as a closeout. And this is one of those balls where I told my ball driller, I said, hey, give me something unique, something different. At the time, my thinking and a lot of other people in the industry was do different drillings. Okay, you need different drillings rather than surface as it is today. Surface being now the biggest adjustment you can make rather than the different type of drillings. So for me, the Guru Master, the way I had it drilled just did not work. Didn't use it. Both balls now at this point have cracked and were gotten rid of once they cracked, because obviously I wasn't able to use them anymore. So for me, next in line was going to be that Guru or the Radical Ridiculous. Came out in 2017 as a symmetrical ball. One of my favorite symmetrical balls of all time. Loved it, used it for many years. Probably 3-4 years. And as you can see, we still have the Ridiculous right here. Okay. Show you my typical drilling. You have your pin and the CG is right here. Symmetrical ball, my typical drilling. Excellent ball for myself. After that, we have the line that comes out is going to be the Katana. Now, I never had the original Katana, but this is the first one of the two that I did buy, the Katana Slash. This was a pearlized ball that I took down. Similar drilling, you can see the pin is above the fingers. The R right here is the CG, and then you have this marking down here, the mass bias. So as you can see, most of my equipment, if you've been looking at my other videos, normally the CG is kicked out over in this area right here. But this ball was here, which caused it to be a little bit more straighter, more controllable for me. Not, honestly, one of my favorite drillings, and a ball that really didn't get much play for myself. But it was a good ball. I enjoyed it. A few months later, same year, 2018, I get the Katana Dragon. Now, the Dragon was a sanded ball. Okay. Now, this is the more typical drilling that I appreciate. Your pin above the fingers, like always. My CG kicked out. And there's my mass bias down here. Okay. So this drilling, as you can see on the Katana Dragon, was one that was more in line with what I appreciate. So the Katana Dragon for me had more hit, or more hook to it, and was a good ball for myself. Wasn't one of my favorites, but it was a good ball. After that time period, I switch around. I go to some different bowling balls. I throw some different Brunswick stuff, different hammer stuff, and then a ball named the Radical Rattler comes out. The Rattler was one that I can remember after some of the Katana series being a ball that was getting a lot of play and was a successful bowling ball. So what did I do? Watching videos at this time now, I go out and I get myself the Rattler. Now the Rattler came out in, I don't have what year this came out. I believe it probably came out in 22 or 23. Symmetrical ball, typical drilling, pin, CG kicked. And the Rattler is still one of the balls that I'll put in my bag. The Rattler for me is a very controllable ball that has great movement, great power when it hits the pocket. And to this day, I still will have that Rattler in my bag when I go to tournaments because of the control factor. That was the last ball I bought from the Radical line until they came out with the Snapshot. So in today's ball review, let's talk about the Snapshot a little bit. The Snapshot is super unique. Super unique because it's called a super symmetrical, okay? It is a symmetrical ball, but depending on how you drill the core, it can turn it into an asim bowling ball. It's not, if you look at the core in the pictures, it's really difficult to see how this ball could even be determined as a symmetrical ball. But they do that, and each ball, when you buy the ball, comes with a drill sheet. So with your pro shop operator, you look at the drill sheet, you figure out which drilling best works for you. For me, I wanted to keep it the asymmetrical because that's the spot in my bag, as I had talked about previously in some other videos. That's the spot that I wanted this one to fill. It was going to be a good hooking symmetrical for me, good motion, good back end. This is a pearlized ball, which obviously you can see I've taken down, but it's a pearlized ball that has great back end on it. And for symmetrical is kind of unique. Okay, so as you can see, I have my pin up, my RG kicked out. Now this Snapshot is got an RG of 2.53 with an intermediate diff of 0.050. And it's a factory finish, 1500 compound. Now, lane play. So the Snapshot hooks a lot. So it's a unique ball because it does easily fit in between your big asim ball and the Rattler. So if you have the Rattler and are looking for a ball to put in the middle, you're going to want to go out and get that Snapshot. I'm real excited to throw the new Torpedo because I definitely think if I wanted to just use strictly Radical, I'm going to have that Torpedo as my big ball out of the bag, my symmetrical Snapshot. When it starts, the Torpedo is a little burnt, not hitting as clean in the back ends. I'm going to be able to pull out that Radical Snapshot to give me a big hook still, but then also have that symmetrical roll to it. And if they are moving a little bit too much, I got my Rattler to go to it next. So that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you enjoy a little bit of history about the minds of Mo Pinel and Phil Cardinale. Unfortunately, in honor of Mo Pinel, there are so many videos about Mo that he's created. He's a unique person. Obviously I've never met him, never had the chance to meet him, but if you watch his videos, he's got a very dry personality, but he's one of those people that is pretty much, I would consider him a genius. And he was one of the, I would say one of the top, probably if not the biggest innovator of bowling in the bowling ball industry. He's in the top 2 or 3. And Phil Cardinale is up there as well in the top 5, I would say. So it's a little history on Radical, review on the Snapshot. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Please keep coming back. Don't forget, big tournament coming up this weekend. I'll have hopefully some shorts for you and a tournament review once I finish the TAT Southwest Region Morongo Open. Come back. That's Saturday. Today's Wednesday. So we got 3-4 days. I'll be setting up my bag. I'll show you what I take to the tournament, what worked for me, what didn't, what I should have done better. As you know, this is kind of a last minute tournament that I have lined up for myself before I start my big tournament season coming up. So stay tuned, come back for more videos, like and subscribe. Please look for me at Instagram, bowlinglefty44, and we'll see you soon.